one of the projects I'm working on uses LabVIEW for Linux, and I was basically trying to configure a bunch of different Linux systems to all have all the software I need, because I'd also need some additional libraries, and I just wanted to be able to reliably recreate these systems from a vanilla Linux, in this case Red Hat Linux system. And so I'm using a software tool called Ansible, which is commonly used in the Linux world for provisioning Linux systems. It can also work with Windows systems. And basically it's a set of rules to then, okay, go make sure all this stuff is installed. And then if I need to update a version, I just edit the file and say, here's the new version, and tell it to run again, and it'll go update everything. So I basically want to give a very brief introduction to how Ansible works, just so you're aware of it. There's a couple of requests. There's a request for NI to make their Linux installer a little bit easier, and we'll see why. And then there's a request for, I've talked to Jim Kring about I'd really like to be able to use VIPM on Linux from the command line. You'll see how it would fit in, but it is not in here. And so then, for example, I want to install DQMH. I have to basically install DQMH, create a tar zipped file, and then install something like that. Okay, so Ansible uses these things called YAML files, and so there's basically just text files in a particular markup language, yet another markup language. There's a particular directory hierarchy that it imposes, and so there's a thing called the inventory file. In this case, I have this Linux virtual machine. I have another Linux virtual machine that is also on the same laptop. It is at that IP address 10.211.55.73. And so this is telling this virtual machine to install to that virtual machine. And I could list multiple other machines, and so if I had several different machines that I wanted a set of rules for, I could list them here either by IP address or by hostname. You also see a commented out Compact Rio thing. This also, I've used this for provisioning software on a Compact Rio. The Compact Rio I had, this is LabVIEW 2020 that I'm installing. The Python that comes with that is an old Python, so I actually installed a newer version of Python in my home directory, and then I'm telling Ansible, use that Python instead. I've already made the request to NI, to Rich Tollerton, can we please update that version of Python, and so maybe that'll be updated at some point in the future. Okay. There's another file here, just briefly. There's a thing called site.yaml, and basically from there I'm saying include two other ones, which are the Bootstrap YAML, and here we'll finally start to see how this works. But basically, you start to give it some tasks, like in this case, I want to actually create an Ansible user that is going to then run all the things on the remote system as this Ansible user, as opposed to running as root. So I want to do as little as root as possible. But first, I need to give a bunch of privileges to that Ansible user so that it can be able to do things like sudo. And also I give it an SSH key so I can SSH from this virtual machine to the other machine to get it to work. And okay, so let's go back and look at kind of the it's hard to do this one-handed. Okay, so roles, and then I've got my epics thing, and then a lot of the work happens in a file right here. So okay, top of the file. So basically, I need to build some things, and I need to install LabVIEW. And so I tell it to install make, install G++, install some other things, make some directories, and various things. So I'm installing Zookeeper and Kafka, which are an OpenJDK, various software things. And I'm going to scroll down to the LabVIEW section just so you can see what I wish LabVIEW would do better. So if you've ever installed the LabVIEW for Linux, you know you have to get the CD for LabVIEW Mac and Linux, and then extract the ISO file for LabVIEW for Linux from that, and then mount that, and then run the installer. And so I've already pre-done that, and I basically have the ISO file for LabVIEW for Linux as another file in this whole directory hierarchy. And then I mount the CD, and then I copy the CD image to the remote machine, and then I run the LabVIEW installer. And one of the nice things about the LabVIEW installer is it has this no prompt and accept license thing. And so I'm basically saying, don't prompt me anything, just install the thing. And then unmount the CD, open the firewall for the LabVIEW server, and then continue on. So it'd be nice if that were like a much simpler step, but whatever. And so then this just kind of continues on, install some other things, and you see it in here. So just wanted to kind of show that. So I also want to install DQMH. This is where I would like to be able to put, run VIPM and install this version of DQMH into this directory and basically do that as one command line. As far as I know, there is no way to make that happen, so that's a request. One of the other things I kind of glossed over is you can basically tell it, I want to pull something from Git. You can just put a line in here and say, pull it from Git. If I want to pull it from another server and then it's like a tar.gz file, I can do that. If I want to run a command, I can do that. Make directories, etc., and I can do it as the Ansible user, or I can tell it to become a different user and run things there. All right. I'll briefly show it in action, but it's basically when I tell it to start running, it just goes and does that. If we see green, that means it's like starting to talk to the other virtual machine, and it's okay, it's going through this and starting to do various things here. And because I'm almost out of time, I'm about to Control-C. All right, thanks.
A special thanks goes out to Kevin Shirey, Quentin Q. Aldridge, Mark Balla, and Jeff DeVore for their help in filming. And of course, this GDevCon NA 2023 wouldn't be possible without all of our sponsors. Thanks!